The ships appeared without warning. They came from the dark spaces between stars, massive and gleaming like polished silver. There were hundreds of them, each one larger than any building humanity had ever constructed. They hung in space above Earth like silent judges, waiting. Commander Jiho stood on the bridge of the indomitable Earth's newest warship. He was a tall man with graying hair and tired eyes. For 30 years, he had served in Earth's defense force. He had trained for this moment his whole life. But now that it was here, he felt small and unprepared. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies," said Hana, his tactical officer. She was young, barely 30, with sharp eyes and quick fingers that danced across her console. "Should I put it through?" Jiho nodded. The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. It stood on two legs like a human, but its skin was pale blue and covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and move. Its eyes were too large, too dark, like pools of ink. "Humans of Earth," the creature said. Its voice was translated instantly, smooth and cold. "I am Ambassador Vorn of the Valthene Empire. We have come to claim your world. You will surrender immediately, or you will be destroyed." Jiho felt his jaw tighten. Behind him, his crew sat frozen, waiting for his response. "This is Commander Jiho of the Earth Defense Force. We do not recognize your authority. Leave our system peacefully, or face the consequences." The alien tilted its head in a way that seemed almost amused. "Consequences? From primitives who still use chemical propellants and metal projectiles? How quaint." The creature made a sound that might have been laughter. "We have observed your weapons. They are artifacts from a forgotten age. Our shields can deflect energy attacks 1,000 times more powerful than anything you possess." "Then you have nothing to fear from letting us be," Jiho replied, keeping his voice steady. "You misunderstand," Vorn said. "We do not fear you. We pity you. To prove our superiority, we shall demonstrate." The screen went dark. Hana's fingers flew across her console. "Sir, they're targeting the asteroid belt. Specifically, asteroid 2025 Delta, the one we were mining." Jiho watched as one of the alien ships moved with impossible grace. A beam of pure light shot from its front, striking the asteroid. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire rock, 3 kilometers wide, simply vanished. Not exploded, not shattered. It just ceased to exist, turned to glowing particles that faded into space. The bridge was silent. Jiho heard someone behind him whisper a prayer. "They're broadcasting again, sir," Hana said quietly. Vorn's face reappeared. "You have one of your Earth hours to discuss surrender. After that, we begin with your orbital stations." The screen went dark again. General Taiyang's face appeared on a smaller screen, calling from Earth's military headquarters. He was an old man, older than Jiho, with a face lined from decades of service. "Jiho, tell me we have options." "We have the fleet, sir. 37 warships, all equipped with our best weapons. Laser batteries, railguns, plasma torpedoes. Will they work?" Jiho glanced at Hana. She was running calculations, her face growing paler by the second. "Sir," she said softly, "their shields are reading at power levels we've never seen. Our lasers might as well be flashlights. The railguns could do damage, but only if we can get through their defenses first." "So that's a no," Taiyang said. It wasn't a question. "We have to try," Jiho said. "We can't just surrender." On another screen, Dr. Soman appeared. She was a physicist, the head of Earth's Weapons Research Division. Her hair was pulled back tightly, and she wore the same white lab coat she always did. "I've been analyzing their energy signatures," she said. "Their shields are incredibly sophisticated. They predict incoming attacks and adjust in microseconds. They're designed to counter energy weapons specifically. What about our kinetic weapons?" Taiyang asked. Someone shook her head. The railguns still use electromagnetic acceleration. Their shields read that as an energy attack. We'd need something completely different to surprise them. We don't have time to develop new weapons, Jiho said. They've given us an hour. The hour passed too quickly. Jiho gave the order he hoped he would never have to give. All ships, battle stations. Prepare to engage. The Earth fleet moved forward, 37 ships against hundreds. The Valthene didn't even bother with formation. They simply waited, like adults watching children play at war. Fire at will, Jiho commanded. The Indomitable launched everything it had. Laser batteries painted the void with light. Railgun slugs shot forward at incredible speeds. Plasma torpedoes traced bright arcs through the darkness. The other Earth ships did the same, unleashing decades of military technology in one desperate assault. The Valthene shields shimmered like soap bubbles, turning every attack aside. The energy weapons splashed harmlessly against invisible barriers. The railgun rounds slowed and stopped as if hitting invisible walls. Then the aliens fired back. Their weapons were nothing like Earth's. Beams of concentrated light cut through ships like paper. One moment the destroyer Courage was there, the next it was gone, simply erased from existence. The cruiser Defiance lasted longer, but not much. Jiho watched as ship after ship disappeared or broke apart. All vessels retreat. He shouted. Fall back to the moon. The survivors fled. Jiho counted ships as they pulled away. They had started with 37. Only 28 made it out. 9 ships lost in minutes dot as the Indomitable escaped. Jiho looked back at the alien fleet. They hadn't even moved. They hung in space, untouched, unmoved, unbeatable. Vorn's face appeared one more time on the screen. Perhaps now you understand. Your weapons are primitive. Your resistance is futile. We will give you one more day to surrender. After that, we begin destroying your cities. The screen went dark. Jiho slumped in his chair, feeling every one of his 53 years. Around him, his crew sat in shocked silence. They had lost, and they had lost badly. But as he stared at the tactical display, something nagged at the back of his mind. The aliens had mocked their weapons, called them primitive. They had specifically mentioned chemical propellants and metal projectiles. As if those things were laughable. Why would they bother to mention something so specific unless it meant something? He leaned forward. Pull up everything we know about their shield technology. She looked at him with red eyes. Sir, we just lost 9 ships. Shouldn't we? Now, please, he said quietly. As the data appeared on his screen, Jiho began to wonder if humanity's greatest weakness might somehow be their only hope. The moonbase felt like a tomb. Jiho walked through corridors filled with wounded soldiers and crying families. The surviving ships had docked at Lunar Station 3, humanity's largest military installation beyond Earth. Everyone knew what the next day would bring. In the command center, General Taiyang had gathered the remaining military leaders. Maps and holographic displays showed Earth's defenses, though everyone knew they were useless against the Valthene. Officers spoke in hushed voices, discussing evacuation plans and underground shelters. We can't win, Admiral Kyung said flatly. He was a heavy man with a scarred face, commander of the Pacific Fleet. We should surrender. Save what lives we can, and live as slaves? Taiyang snapped. Never. Jiho stood near the back, barely listening. His mind was still working on the problem, turning it over and over like a puzzle with missing pieces. Dr. Soman sat beside him, her laptop open, running endless simulations. Their shields are perfect, she muttered. Absolutely perfect. They analyze every incoming attack in nanoseconds. Energy weapons, electromagnetic projectiles, even our nuclear missiles. They see it coming and adapt. What if they see it coming but don't understand it? Jiho asked quietly. Somin looked up at him. What do you mean? The ambassador specifically mocked our chemical propellants and metal projectiles. Why those specifically? Because they're primitive, Somin said. Chemical reactions and simple ballistics. We've barely used them in space combat for 50 years. Exactly. Jiho leaned forward. Their shields predict attacks based on energy signatures and trajectories. But what if we used weapons so simple, so unpredictable, that their computers can't calculate the threat properly? Somin frowned, thinking. Her fingers started moving across her keyboard, running new calculations. Her eyes went wide. Oh my God, their shields are calibrated for advanced warfare. They're looking for sophisticated attack patterns. But a simple explosive, a conventional missile with an irregular flight path, basic gunpowder propellant. She looked up at Jiho. It's so primitive that their systems might not recognize it as a serious threat until it's too late. Can you prove it? Jiho asked. Give me 6 hours. Jiho stood and walked to the front of the room. General Taiyang, I need to speak with you, privately. In a small office away from the others, Jiho explained his theory. Taiyang listened, his weathered face unreadable. When Jiho finished, the general was quiet for a long moment. You're talking about chemical weapons, gunpowder, conventional explosives, Taiyang said slowly. We stopped using most of those in space combat decades ago, because we developed better technology, Jiho agreed. But better doesn't mean more effective. Not against an enemy who's prepared for better. This is insane. So is surrendering to aliens who think we're primitives. Taiyang smiled grimly. How many of these old weapons do we have? Not enough, Jiho admitted. But we have the factories. We have the knowledge. We just need time. We have 1 day before they start destroying cities. Then we'd better work fast. The next 6 hours were chaos. Dr. Somin and her team ran simulation after simulation, testing the theory. Meanwhile, Jiho contacted every military installation on Earth and the Moon. Old warehouses were opened, revealing crates of weapons that hadn't been touched in generations. Conventional missiles, artillery shells, even old-fashioned bullets. Young engineer Hyan was called in from the maintenance division. He was barely 25, fresh from university, but he had a gift for making old technology work again. He stood in front of Jiho, confused about why he'd been summoned. Sir, I work on life support systems. I don't understand why. Can you retrofit our fighters with conventional weapons? Jiho interrupted. Autocannons, rocket pods, things that use chemical propellants instead of electromagnetic systems. Hyan blinked. The old stuff from museums? Sir, those weapons are 70, 80 years old. Can you do it or not? Yes, sir. In theory. But why would we? Because theory is all we have right now. Factories that had been quiet for years roared to life. Workers who had been making spare parts for ships suddenly found themselves assembling conventional missiles. Ammunition that belonged in history books rolled off production lines. Chemists mixed explosive compounds using formulas from ancient textbooks. Somin came to Jiho at hour 5, her face exhausted but excited. I've run it 1,000 times. It should work. Their shields use predictive algorithms. They calculate threat levels based on energy output, velocity profiles, and attack patterns. But conventional explosives have irregular detonation patterns. Chemical propellants create inconsistent thrust. The trajectories are less perfect. The explosions are messier. Less perfect means less predictable, Jiho said. Exactly. Their shields will see the threats coming, but they won't properly calculate how dangerous they are. A conventional missile might read as only 20% threat level, when it's actually carrying enough explosive to punch through their hull. Might? Jiho pressed. Summon met his eyes. I'm a scientist, Commander. I deal in probabilities, not certainties. This might work. Or it might fail spectacularly. But it's the best chance we have. Jiho nodded slowly. Then we take the chance. At hour 6, he called together all the pilots who had survived the first battle. They gathered in the briefing room, maybe 200 men and women, all wearing the haunted expressions of people who had watched their friends die. Pilot Una stood near the front. She was small and fierce, with short black hair and burned scars on her left hand from a training accident years ago. She had lost her entire squadron in the first attack. Listen up, Jiho said. We're going to hit them again. But this time, we're changing tactics. He pulled up images of old weapons on the screen. We're stripping modern weapons from our fighters and replacing them with these. Autocannons, rocket pods, conventional missiles. The room erupted in confused voices. Those are antiques. Someone shouted. We'll be slaughtered. Another voice called out. Una stood up. Commander, with respect, are you insane? Those weapons are primitive. They'll barely scratch modern armor, let alone alien shields. That's what the aliens think too, Jiho said. That's exactly what they think. And that's why this might work. He explained the theory. As he talked, he watched doubt slowly turn to understanding on their faces. Not hope, not yet, but understanding. It's a long shot, he admitted. Maybe it fails. Maybe we all die. But if we surrender, we die anyway, just slowly. I'd rather go down fighting with every weapon we have, even the old ones. The room was quiet. Then Una stood up again. When do we start? Right now, Jiho said. We have 18 hours before the deadline. That's not enough time to arm the whole fleet, but it's enough for a strike force. I need volunteers. Every hand in the room went up as the pilots filed out to start preparations. Hana approached Jiho. Sir, the Valthine are broadcasting again. They want our surrender. Tell them we're still discussing it, Jiho said. Buy us time. They won't wait long. They don't have to, Jiho said, watching through the window as workers swarmed over fighters, installing weapons that belonged in museums. We're bringing the past back to show them the future. The deadline came too fast. 18 hours of frantic work, and still Jiho knew they weren't ready. Only 15 fighters had been fully retrofitted with conventional weapons. Only 3 ships had loaded enough old-style missiles to make a difference. But the Valthine were done waiting. Commander, they're moving, Hana reported from her station. The entire fleet is advancing toward Earth. Jiho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical display. Hundreds of silver ships gliding forward like sharks. Behind them, Earth hung vulnerable and blue. 4 billion people waiting to see if their defenders could perform a miracle. Send the signal, Jiho said quietly. All ships, prepare for Operation Throwback. It was Hyan who had named it. The young engineer had worked without sleep for 18 hours, installing cannons from decommissioned fighter jets, mounting rocket pods that were older than he was. When asked what to call the mission, he had simply said, We're throwing it back to the old days. Throwback. The name stuck. Sir, General Taiyang is on the line, Hana said. The general's face appeared on screen. He looked older than he had yesterday, if that was possible. Jiho, are you sure about this? No, sir, Jiho admitted. But I'm sure about doing nothing even less. Taiyang nodded slowly. Then, make it count. Earth is watching. The Indomitable led the remaining fleet forward. 28 ships, all that survived the first battle. But this time, they had something different. The cargo bays were filled with conventional missiles, each one carrying simple chemical explosives. The fighters carried autocannons that fired plain metal bullets. No fancy technology. No advanced systems. Just basic weapons that had killed humans for centuries. "They're hailing us," Hannah said. Ambassador Vorn appeared on screen, that same amused expression on his blue face. "Commander Jiho, have you come to surrender at last?" "No," Jiho said. "We've come to fight." Vorn's laugh was like broken glass. "With what?" "We destroyed your fleet once already. Nothing has changed." "Everything has changed," Jiho replied. "You just don't know it yet." He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "All ships, this is it. Remember the plan. Get close, get messy, and show them what primitive means." The fleet accelerated. The Valthene waited, confident and unmoved. When the Earth ships came into range, the aliens didn't even bother to scatter. "Fire," Jiho commanded. The Indomitable launched its first missile. Not a plasma torpedo. Not a guided smart weapon. Just a simple rocket with a payload of conventional explosives. It wobbled slightly as it flew, its chemical propellant creating an irregular thrust pattern. The Valthene shields activated, shimmering around the targeted ship. The computers analyzed the incoming missile, calculated its energy output, predicted its trajectory. The threat assessment came back low. Just a primitive explosive. Nothing to worry about. The missile hit the shield and punched straight through it. The explosion was beautiful. The conventional warhead detonated in a burst of fire and shrapnel that looked ancient and brutal, compared to the clean energy weapons. The Valthene ship's hull buckled. Atmosphere vented into space. For a moment, everything stopped. The Valthene fleet seemed frozen, unable to process what had just happened. "Again!" Jiho shouted. "All missiles fire!" The Earth fleet unleashed everything. Hundreds of conventional missiles streaked toward the alien ships. Each one was crude and imperfect. Each one confused the sophisticated alien defenses. The Valthene shields flickered and failed, unable to properly calculate the threat from weapons so fundamentally simple. Explosions bloomed across the alien fleet. Ships that had seemed invincible hours ago now bled atmosphere and burning debris. The Valthene scrambled to respond, firing their energy weapons at the Earth ships. Several strikes hit home. The destroyer Resolution took a direct hit and broke apart. The cruiser Steadfast lost its engine section, but the Earth fleet kept coming, kept firing. "Launch fighters!" Jiho ordered. Yuna led her squadron out of the Indomitable's bay. Her fighter felt different, with the old autocannons mounted under the wings. The weapons were heavier. The balance was off. But when she squeezed the trigger, they roared to life with a sound she'd only heard in training simulations. Bullets. Actual metal. Bullets sprayed from her cannons. Thousands of rounds per minute. They tore into a Valthene cruiser's hull, punching through armor that was designed to deflect laser fire. The alien shields treated each bullet as a separate micro-threat, and there were too many to track. "It's working!" Yuna shouted over the radio. "The shields can't stop them all." Her squadron followed her lead, strafing the alien ships with conventional weapons. Rocket pods fired salvos of unguided explosives. Autocannons ripped through hulls. The Valthene ships, so elegant and advanced, were being torn apart by technology that was nearly a century old. On the Indomitable, Hannah worked frantically at her station, coordinating the attack. "Sir, we're reading massive confusion in their fleet. They're trying to recalibrate their shields, but it's taking time." "Don't give them time," Jiho said. "All ships, press the attack. Hit them with everything we've got." The battle turned into chaos. The Valthene were still deadly. Their energy weapons vaporized fighters and cut ships in half. But now they were vulnerable too. For every Earth ship they destroyed, humanity took down 2 of theirs. Ambassador Vorn's face appeared on every screen, no longer amused. How? He demanded. How are you doing this? These are primitive weapons. That's the point, Jiho said, then cut the transmission again. A Valthine battleship loomed ahead, massive and terrible. Its weapons charged, preparing to fire on the Indomitable. Jiho had one conventional missile left in his forward tubes. He fired it personally, watching the simple rocket streak across the void. The battleship's shield shimmered. The computers analyzed the threat. Low probability of damage. The shield stayed at minimum power, conserving energy for the real threats. The missile struck the shield and kept going, passing through the gaps in the defensive field that the computers had deemed acceptable. It hit the battleship's hull and detonated. The explosion was massive, touching off secondary blasts inside the ship. The battleship shuddered, then began to list to one side, trailing debris. Direct hit, Hannah shouted. The battleship is disabled. Around them, the Valthine fleet was breaking apart. Not destroyed, but damaged. Confused. Afraid. These primitives were supposed to be easy prey. Their weapons were supposed to be harmless. But the aliens were dying, killed by explosives and bullets that belonged in museums. Yuna's fighter took a hit from a plasma beam. Her left engine died, and she struggled to maintain control. This is Yuna, I'm hit. Engine 1 is gone. Can you make it back? Jiho asked. Negative, sir, but I've still got one rocket pod left. She turned her crippled fighter toward a Valthine destroyer. Going to make it count. Wait, but she was already accelerating, pushing her dying fighter toward the enemy ship. At the last moment, she fired her remaining rockets, a dozen conventional explosives that slammed into the destroyer's bridge section. Then she ejected, her escape pod tumbling away as both ships exploded behind her. Got her pod, Hana reported. Rescue shuttle is on the way. The Valthine fleet began to retreat. Slowly at first, then faster. They pulled back from Earth, their perfect formation broken, their ships trailing fire and debris. The mighty empire that had arrived with such confidence was fleeing from chemical explosives and metal bullets. Jiho watched them go, hardly daring to believe it. They had won. Not completely, not decisively, but they had won. Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies, Hana said. She looked shocked. They're retreating to the edge of the system. They're requesting negotiations. The bridge erupted in cheers. Jiho stood silent, watching the alien fleet limp away. Around him, his crew hugged and cried and celebrated. Earth had survived its first day of war, but Jiho knew this wasn't over. The Valthine would regroup. They would adapt. They would come back angrier and more prepared. He looked at the tactical display, at the empty missile tubes and the damaged ships. They had barely enough conventional weapons left for one more fight. They needed more time. They needed more weapons. They needed to turn Earth's entire industrial capacity toward building an arsenal of the past. Hannah, he said quietly, send a message to General Taiyang. Tell him we need to start making more. A lot more. She nodded, understanding. The war had just begun. 3 weeks after the first Valthine retreat, Earth had become a factory. Every manufacturing plant, every workshop, every facility that could produce anything useful had been converted to weapons production. But not the advanced weapons humanity had spent a century perfecting. Instead, they were making the simple ones. General Taiyang stood in what used to be an automobile factory in Seoul. Now it produced artillery shells by the millions. He picked up one of the shells, feeling its weight. Simple steel casing. Chemical explosive inside. A detonator that worked on impact. Technology from 200 years ago. We've produced 8 million units this week, the factory supervisor said proudly. We're on track for 10 million next week. Make it 15 million, Taiyang said. The Valthine will come back. When they do, we need to be ready. The aliens had indeed pulled back to the edge of the solar system. Their fleet sat there, waiting and watching. They had sent one more transmission 3 days ago. Ambassador Vorn had appeared on screen, his face unreadable. "We underestimated you," the alien had said simply. "That will not happen again. We are calling for reinforcements. When they arrive, your primitive tricks will not save you." Then silence. The Valthine watched. Earth-prepared Dr. Soman had become the most important person on the planet. Her research teams worked around the clock, finding new ways to weaponize old technology. She stood in her laboratory, exhausted but driven, presenting her latest findings to the military council. "We've analyzed their shield technology thoroughly now," she explained, pointing to complex diagrams. "The Valthine shields are quantum-based, using predictive algorithms that can calculate threats with incredible accuracy. But they're optimized for energy weapons and sophisticated projectiles. They literally cannot comprehend simple ballistics." "Why?" asked Admiral Kyung. "Because their entire civilization has moved beyond them," Soman said. "Imagine trying to defend against a sword when all you've trained for is laser rifles. Your armor, your shields, everything is designed for high-tech threats. A simple blade just doesn't register as dangerous." "So were the sword," Taiyang said. "Exactly. And I've found ways to make our swords sharper." She pulled up new designs. Cluster munitions, thermobaric bombs, even old-fashioned napalm. Each one creates unpredictable explosive patterns that their computers can't properly model. Haiyan had been promoted to Chief of Tactical Engineering. At 25, he was the youngest person to ever hold the position, but nobody questioned it. He had proven himself in those frantic 18 hours before the first battle. Now he stood in a shipyard, overseeing the modification of Earth's entire remaining fleet. "Strip out the plasma batteries," he ordered the workers. "Install conventional missile tubes." "Yes, I know they're bigger and heavier." "That's the point. The Valthine are looking for efficient weapons. We're giving them the opposite." A worker approached him nervously. "Sir, we found some old chemical warfare containers in storage. From the last war, before they were banned." Haiyan frowned. "What kind of chemicals?" "Nerve agents. Biological weapons. Things humanity agreed to never use again." "Destroy them," Haiyan said immediately. "We're fighting to survive, not to become monsters. There are lines we don't cross." While the fleet was being retrofitted, the ground forces prepared for something nobody wanted to think about: alien landing parties. Commander Daeho of the Marine Corps stood on a testing range, watching his soldiers practice with weapons their grandparents might have used. Daeho was a massive man, built like a tank, with a scarred face and hands that had seen too many fights. He carried an old-fashioned shotgun, the kind that used shells filled with metal pellets. When he fired it at the test target, the gun roared and the target shredded. "Simple, brutal, effective," he said to his troops. "The aliens have personal shields, just like their ships. Energy weapons bounce off. But buckshot?" He gestured to the destroyed target. "Too many projectiles, too spread out, moving too irregularly. Their shields can't track it all." His soldiers practiced with shotguns, assault rifles, even grenades. Old weapons brought out of storage and museums. Weapons that worked on simple principles. Chemical propellant pushes metal very fast. Metal hits target. Target breaks. "Sir, this feels wrong," one young Marine said, holding an ancient rifle. "We have plasma weapons, electromagnetic pulse guns. Why are we using these antiques?" "Because antiques are what's keeping us alive," Daeho replied. "The Valthine prepared for our best technology. They didn't prepare for our worst. And right now, Our worst is better than their best. The Valthine, attacked on day 23. Their reinforcements had arrived, another 300 ships, fresh and undamaged. The combined fleet moved toward Earth with grim determination. No more talk. No more warnings. Just War.GO watched them come from the bridge of the Indomitable. His ship had been fully retrofitted. Gone were the elegant plasma batteries and sleek missile pods. Now the ship bristled with conventional weapons, massive artillery cannons, rocket pods, tubes that launched simple explosive missiles. It looked crude and ugly, and GO loved it. They've learned from last time, Hana observed. They're spreading their formation, keeping distance between ships. They're trying to minimize damage if we break through their shields. Then we adapt too, GO said. Signal all ships. Plan Delta. Plan Delta was brutal and simple. Instead of long-range missile attacks, the Earth fleet would close to knife-fighting range and use overwhelming firepower. Get close enough that the aliens couldn't maneuver. Then pound them with every conventional weapon available. The fleets met in the space between Earth and Mars. The Valthine opened fire first, their energy weapons lighting up the void. The Earth ships took hits. The cruiser Valiant exploded. The destroyer Thunder lost its front section. But the survivors kept coming, closing the distance. When they were close enough, GO gave the order. All ships, open fire. The Indomitable roared. Artillery cannons fired shells the size of cars. Rocket pods launched salvos of unguided explosives. Conventional missiles streaked toward the alien fleet by the hundreds. Each weapon was crude and simple, and each one punched through shields that were designed for sophisticated attacks. Valthine ships exploded. Their perfect hulls, designed to deflect energy attacks, crumpled under simple high explosives. Their quantum shields, marvels of advanced technology, failed against weapons that were fundamentally too simple to properly calculate. But the aliens had learned. Their ships began firing at point-blank range, using their energy weapons like clubs, overwhelming Earth's defenses through sheer power. Ships died on both sides. The battle turned into a brawl, ugly and desperate. "Sir, 3 Valthine cruisers are breaking off," Hana reported. "They're heading for Earth. Landing trajectory." "Let the ground forces handle it," GO said grimly. "We have to hold the line here." On Earth, sirens wailed across every city. The Valthine landing craft descended like falling stars, heading for major population centers. Daeho watched them come from his position in Seoul. His Marines deployed in defensive positions. The alien craft landed in the city center. Doors opened, and Valthine soldiers emerged, 7 feet tall and covered in armor that shimmered with shield technology. They carried energy rifles that could vaporize a human in seconds. "Hold fire," Daeho commanded quietly. "Wait for them to get closer." The Valthine advanced confidently, their shields active. They had fought 100 worlds. They knew how to conquer planets. Their weapons charged. Now, Daeho roared. 1,000 Marines opened fire with shotguns, assault rifles, and machine guns. The sound was deafening. Thousands of bullets and pellets filled the air, a wall of lead moving at supersonic speeds. The Valthine shields tried to compensate. They could track energy attacks. They could deflect sophisticated projectiles. But simple bullets, thousands of them, coming from hundreds of angles at once. The shields flickered and failed. Aliens fell. Their advanced armor crumpled under the impact of plain metal moving very fast. They tried to return fire, their energy weapons cutting through buildings. But the Marines kept moving, kept firing, using tactics from wars fought before space travel existed. Daeho led a squad into close quarters. They found Valthine soldiers in a shopping complex, their energy rifles useless in the confined space filled with concrete and steel. He fired his shotgun at point-blank range. The alien shield shimmered, but couldn't stop all the pellets. It fell down in space. The battle continued. Jiho's fleet was being torn apart, but so was the Valthine Armada. For every Earth ship destroyed, 2 alien vessels died. The mathematics of attrition favored humanity now. They had been the underdogs. Now they were showing the galaxy what desperation and creativity could achieve. "Sir, the Valthine flagship is hailing us," Hannah said. Ambassador Vorn appeared on screen. His face was no longer amused or confident. It was simply tired. "Enough. We withdraw. Why should we trust you?" Jiho asked. "Because we are dying," Vorn said bluntly. "You are primitives, and yet you are killing us with ancient weapons. We came to conquer. We found something we did not expect." "What's that?" "An enemy willing to use any tool available, no matter how crude." Vorn's image flickered. "We will leave your system. But know this, humans. You have won today through surprise. The galaxy will hear of your tactics. Next time, your tricks will not work. Then we'll find new tricks." 6 months after the Valthine retreated, Earth was a different world. The factories still ran day and night, but now they produced both old and new. Conventional weapons alongside plasma batteries. Artillery shells next to quantum missiles. Humanity had learned its lesson. Never rely on just one type of technology. "Commander," Jiho stood in the observation deck of Orbital Station 1, watching construction crews build the newest addition to Earth's defenses. It was a massive weapons platform, bristling with every type of weapon humanity could produce. Energy cannons pointed toward the stars, but so did old-fashioned railguns that fired simple metal slugs. "It's ugly," General Taiyang said, standing beside him. The old man looked healthier now, less burdened. "But I suppose that's the point. Beauty is overrated in weapons," Jiho replied. "Effectiveness is all that matters." News of humanity's victory had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. The Valthine Empire, humiliated by their defeat, had retreated to their home systems. But they had talked. The story spread from world to world. The primitives of Earth had defeated an advanced civilization using ancient weapons. Some species laughed. Others grew curious. A few grew nervous. The first diplomatic contact came from the Kellian Confederacy. They were a peaceful species, traders and explorers who had watched the war with interest. Their ambassador, a 4-armed creature named Sek, arrived on a small diplomatic ship. Jiho met the ambassador in a conference room with Hana and General Taiyang present. Sek's 4 eyes studied them carefully before speaking through a translator device. "We come in peace," Sek said. "We wish to understand. The Valthine are known across the galaxy as conquerors. They have destroyed 100 civilizations. Yet you defeated them with primitive weapons." "How?" "We used what worked," Jiho said simply. "Their shields were designed for advanced warfare. We gave them something different." "But your weapons are so basic," Sek said, struggling for the right word. "Chemical explosives. Metal projectiles. These things are considered obsolete by every spacefaring civilization. That's why they worked," Taiyang explained. The Valthine prepared for everything they expected. They didn't prepare for the unexpected. Sek was quiet for a long moment. "The galaxy has rules for warfare. Conventions about acceptable weapons and tactics. Energy weapons, shields, ship-to-ship combat, following established patterns. You ignored all of these." "We didn't know the rules," Hana said. "And even if we did, we were fighting for survival. Rules seemed less important than living." "Yes," Sek said slowly. "Perhaps that is the problem. Perhaps the galaxy has become too comfortable with its rules." The alien shifted in its seat. We would like to establish trade relations with Earth, and perhaps exchange some defensive technologies. The Kellian were the first, but not the last. Over the following months, a dozen species made contact. Some wanted trade. Others wanted to study Earth's unconventional tactics. A few wanted to hire human military advisors. Dr. Soman found herself in an unexpected position, teaching alien scientists about ancient Earth weapons technology. She stood in a lecture hall, facing representatives from 6 different species, explaining the principles of chemical explosives. The key is unpredictability, she said, showing diagrams. Advanced weapons are optimized for efficiency. They follow precise trajectories, release exact amounts of energy. But old explosives? She smiled. They're messy, irregular, hard to calculate. That's their strength. One of the aliens, a crystalline being named Zosh, raised a tentacle. But surely this is inefficient. Why not simply improve your shields to better predict these attacks? We could, Soman agreed. But then we'd fall into the same trap as the Valthine. Over-specialization. Instead, we're developing layered defenses. Energy shields for energy attacks. Kinetic barriers for physical projectiles. And when all else fails, good old-fashioned armor plating. Pilot Yuna had become something of a celebrity. She gave lectures to young pilots from Earth and beyond, teaching them about unconventional combat tactics. She stood in a simulator room, demonstrating combat maneuvers. The key is unpredictability, she explained, echoing Summon's words. In my old fighter, every move was optimized by the computer. Perfect turns. Perfect shots. But perfect means predictable. Now I fly with manual controls for critical moments. The computer helps, but I make the final decisions. My mistakes become strengths because the enemy can't predict them. Hyan had been promoted again. At 26, he was the youngest rear admiral in Earth's history. He oversaw the construction of humanity's new mixed technology fleet. Ships that combine the best of both worlds. Advanced computers and navigation. But weapon systems that range from quantum cannons to simple artillery. We're not abandoning technology, he explained to a group of visiting alien engineers. We're expanding our definition of what technology means. A railgun is technology. So is a catapult. Both can kill you. The question is which one your enemy expects. Commander Deho trained Earth's ground forces and taught tactics to allied species. He stood on a training ground, watching human marines spar with Kellian soldiers. The aliens were learning to use both energy weapons and conventional firearms. Your shields are good, Deho told the Kellian commander. But shields can fail. When they do, you need to know how to fight without them. That means understanding every weapon available. He demonstrated by firing both a plasma rifle and a shotgun at targets. The plasma rifle was precise and powerful. The shotgun was crude and loud. Both destroyed their targets. Versatility wins wars, Deho said. Specialization loses them. The Valthine stayed away, but they watched. Their probes observed Earth from a distance, gathering intelligence. They saw the weapons platforms. They saw the mixed technology fleet. They saw a civilization that had learned from near-dash defeat. 8 months after the war, Ambassador Vorn sent one final transmission. Jiho received it privately, in his quarters on the Indomitable. The alien's face appeared on his screen, older and wearier than before. Commander Jiho, Vorn said, we have not forgotten our defeat. The Valthine Empire does not forgive. But we have learned to respect. Respect? Jiho asked. You taught us something the galaxy had forgotten. That sophistication is not the same as superiority. That old does not mean obsolete. That a primitive weapon in skilled hands is deadlier than an advanced weapon wielded poorly. Why are you telling me this? Because the galaxy is changing, Warren said. News of your tactics has spread. Species that have not fought in centuries are remembering how. Peaceful traders are arming themselves with simple weapons alongside their energy batteries. The rules of warfare are being rewritten, and it is your fault. Is that a threat? No, Vorn said quietly. It is a warning and a thank you. You reminded us all that survival requires adaptation, not just technology. The Valthene will not attack Earth again. You have earned your place among the stars, primitives. The transmission ended. Jiho sat in silence, thinking about the alien's words. Earth had won its war, but in doing so, it had changed something larger. The galaxy had grown comfortable with its advanced weapons and sophisticated tactics. Humanity had reminded everyone that sometimes the simple solution was the best one. 1 year after the war, Jiho stood before the United Earth Council. They had asked him to serve as humanity's first ambassador to the galactic community. He had accepted, though he insisted on bringing something unusual to his new posting dot at his hip. Clearly visible, he wore a simple ballistic pistol, old-fashioned, primitive, deadly. Is that necessary? One of the counselors asked. It's a reminder, Jiho said, to them and to us. We won not because we were the most advanced. We won because we were willing to use every tool available, no matter how old or simple. I carry this pistol to remember that lesson. He looked out the window at the stars, where Earth ships patrolled alongside vessels from a dozen other species. Mixed fleets with mixed weapons. The galaxy had learned. We were called primitives, Jiho said softly. They mocked our weapons. But those weapons saved us. And now the galaxy understands. There's no such thing as a primitive weapon. Only primitive thinking. Hana stood beside him, wearing her new uniform as a captain. What now, Ambassador? Jiho smiled. Now we make sure Earth never forgets this lesson. We build our advanced weapons. Yes. We develop new technologies. But we also remember the old ones. We stay versatile. We stay unpredictable. And if someone attacks us again, then we show them what happens when you underestimate humanity's ability to adapt. He touched the pistol at his hip. We've proven that fancy technology isn't everything. Sometimes the best weapon is the one your enemy isn't prepared for. In orbit above Earth, construction continued. The new defense platforms held quantum cannons and plasma batteries, but also conventional missile tubes and artillery systems. The shipyards produced vessels with cutting-edge shields and engines, but armed them with weapons ranging from energy lances to simple explosive rockets. Dr. Soman published a research on defensive diversification. Hyon designed ships that combine technologies from a dozen different eras. Yuna trained pilots in both computer-assisted precision and manual unpredictability. Deho's Marines practiced with both plasma rifles and shotguns. Earth had learned its lesson well. Never rely on just one approach. Never assume that newer is always better.